My girlfriend got me an interesting birthday present. I turned 23 yesterday, and like most of my birthdays over the past few years, I wasn't looking for anything extravagant. I've never been the kind of person who throws huge parties or expects a pile of gifts. I appreciate simplicity, a nice evening, good food, time with people I love. That's exactly what I was looking forward to this year. A quiet evening with my girlfriend, some good food, maybe a little cake, and just a cozy night together. We've been together for a little over a year now. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, like any relationship, but overall, we've been happy. We live together in a small apartment, both trying to juggle full-time work and the beginnings of our adult lives. It's been a learning curve, but she's someone I genuinely care about. So, when she offered to cook dinner and get a cake for my birthday, I was touched. She didn't just go through the motions, she made one of my favorite meals from scratch, chicken marsala, with this creamy garlic mashed potato side dish she knows I love, set the table with actual cloth napkins, a rare occasion for us, and even picked up a small cake from a local bakery that we both like. It was perfect, low-key, thoughtful, and filled with all the things that make me happy. After we finished eating, she smiled, stood up from the table, and said, "I have a gift for you." I wasn't expecting anything, so I was surprised. She walked into the bedroom and came back with a small gift bag, one of those little ones you might use for jewelry or a gift card. It was neatly packed with tissue paper, and I was genuinely curious. I smiled, thanked her, and opened it. Inside was a tiny packet of Smucker's grape jelly. The kind you get at diners or breakfast buffets, the single-serving kind that comes with toast or pancakes. I blinked. I stared at it for a second, waiting for the punchline. Was this a gag? A hint toward something else? A setup for a bigger gift? But nothing happened. I looked at her, trying not to seem rude, and asked with a confused smile, what is this?" She smiled wide and said, "Do you get it?" I paused, tried to think. Grape jelly? Was it a reference to an inside joke? Something I said? Something we did? I came up blank. After a few moments of silence, I said honestly, "No, I don't get it." Her smile dropped like a stone. She didn't say anything for a few seconds, and then suddenly her expression changed to anger. She stood up, muttered "asshole" under her breath, and stormed off to our bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I sat there completely stunned. I had no idea what had just happened. The rest of the evening was miserable. I tried knocking on the door and asking to talk. She didn't answer. I texted her from the living room, no reply. She only came out to use the bathroom and wouldn't even look at me. That night, I slept on the couch while she locked the bedroom door. The next morning, nothing had changed. She was giving me the silent treatment, completely closed off. I felt like I was being punished, but I didn't even understand what I'd done wrong. It was just a packet of jelly. How was I supposed to know what that meant? I turned to Reddit, hoping someone out there had some kind of insight. Maybe I was missing something obvious. Was Smucker's grape jelly some kind of symbol or meme I didn't know about? Did it represent something in pop culture? Something romantic? The responses were all over the place. Some people laughed, some thought it was cute but poorly communicated, and some suggested maybe there was a personal story behind it. That last theory stuck with me. Maybe there was a deeper reason, something personal I'd forgotten. Then it clicked. Not a memory, but an idea. If she gave me jelly, maybe I was supposed to be the peanut butter? I didn't have much to go on, but I figured I might as well try something. So I went out and bought a new jar of peanut butter. I came home, placed it gently at the foot of our bedroom door, knocked, and said softly, "There's a gift out here for you." A few moments later, I heard the door unlock. She peeked out and saw the jar. Her face softened a bit, curious. I walked up, smiled, and said, "If you start talking to me again, I'll be the peanut butter to your jelly." She stared at me for a second, clearly trying not to smile, then finally gave in. "You're so dumb," she said with a laugh. But the ice was broken. We sat down and finally talked. That's when she explained the story behind the jelly. Back in high school, during our senior year, we had met for the first time in the school cafeteria. I had forgotten this completely, but she remembered every detail. She was new to the school, and it was her first day. She didn't know anyone and was wandering around with her lunch tray, looking for a place to sit. I saw her and offered her a spot at my table. Apparently, I was eating a sandwich that day. Not just any sandwich, a plain grape jelly sandwich. No peanut butter, just jelly. She remembered thinking it was weird, but kind of endearing. That was our first interaction. That's how we met. The jelly was meant to be a symbolic gift. A callback to that moment, that first spark of connection between us. She thought I would remember, that I'd open the bag, see the jelly, and instantly go, "Oh," like when we met. But I didn't. I had absolutely no recollection of what I was eating that day. And, because I didn't react the way she expected, she felt hurt, maybe even rejected. When she explained it, I felt a mix of emotions: guilt for forgetting something that clearly meant a lot to her, sympathy for her hurt, and relief that it wasn't something more serious. I apologized. Not for forgetting, because I genuinely didn't remember, but for not realizing how important that memory was to her. She apologized too for shutting me out, for reacting so strongly, and for assuming I'd remember something so specific. In the end, we were okay. We both learned something. She learned that not every memory we hold dear is shared equally by the other person, and I learned that sometimes a small, silly gift can carry a lot of emotional weight. So yeah, the great mystery of the Smucker's grape jelly is solved. And the next time she gives me a cryptic gift, I'll think twice before assuming it's meaningless. Because chances are, it's her way of saying something bigger. TLDR, my girlfriend gave me a single packet of grape jelly for my birthday. I didn't get the reference, and she got upset. Turns out it was a callback to the first day we met in high school, where I happened to be eating a grape jelly sandwich. I didn't remember, but once we talked it through, we were able to laugh about it and move on. Final note. It's funny how relationships can be built on the tiniest moments: where you sat, what you ate, what song was playing. Sometimes we hold on to those things tightly, assuming the other person does too. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. But what matters is how we talk about it afterward, how we bridge the gap between expectation and reality, between memory and meaning. So now, whenever I see a packet of Smucker's jelly at a diner or hotel breakfast bar, I smile. Because to most people, it's just jelly. But to us, it's a reminder of a table in a noisy high school cafeteria, a shared lunch, and the weird, sweet beginning of something real. How I found out my relationship was over, from my cousin, not even from my boyfriend. You know that kind of love that always feels unfinished? The one that keeps resurfacing no matter how many times you try to move on? That's what this was. Or, at least, what I thought it was. It started when I was 14. I went on a church youth trip to a skating rink, the kind of innocent event where you expect nothing more than some snacks and gospel music on wheels. I had a small crush on this one boy in our group. Nothing serious, just that fluttery feeling of being young and curious. I gave him my number, expecting maybe a cute text or a shy call. But when the phone rang later, it wasn't him. It was his friend. That friend would become the first boy I ever loved. He was living in a group home at the time, and somehow, through that one random call, we ended up connecting. Not in a planned way, just naturally. He was funny, vulnerable, and charismatic in a way that made me feel seen, like someone finally understood me. We started dating, and though we were both just kids, the feelings were intense. Real. We stayed together for a couple of years. Even through the chaos of his life, he was frequently moving between group homes, getting into trouble, and later, going in and out of jail. Looking back, it was never a stable relationship, but it was my first real experience of love, intimacy, and heartbreak. We even lost our virginity to each other. He was my first everything. Our lives kept pulling us in different directions. I was trying to figure myself out: college, jobs, moving out of state, while he was still fighting his own battles. There were long stretches where we didn't speak, and in between, there were others. I dated different people. So did he. But somehow, we always circled back to each other. Every few years, it was like clockwork. We'd reconnect, talk for hours, reminisce, start sleeping together again. And every time, it would fall apart. Every time, I would tell myself, this is the last time. But of course, it wasn't. A few years ago, he got out of jail and reached out to me again. We decided to really try for a serious relationship this time. I think part of me still believed we were meant to be, that all those years of history meant something deeper. But reality hit hard. He was fresh out of jail and nowhere near ready for a stable, healthy partnership. I was growing, evolving, healing. He wasn't. Still, I didn't walk away. Not fully. Instead, we slipped into a friends with benefits dynamic. It wasn't ideal, but it gave us both something. Comfort? Familiarity? I don't know. It felt easier than confronting the truth that we weren't truly compatible anymore. Then I got pregnant. And then I had a miscarriage. It broke me in ways I didn't expect. But what hurt more than the loss itself was his reaction. He blamed me. Said it was my fault. That I didn't take care of myself. That I didn't care. And then, silence. We stopped speaking. For 2 years. I thought that was the end. And maybe it should have been. But life has a funny way of bringing back what you haven't fully healed from. He reached out again. Apologized. Said he missed me. Said he'd changed. I wasn't sure what I believed, but my heart softened. We began talking again. Then sleeping together. Again. This time it felt different, or at least that's what I told myself. He started coming over more regularly, spending weekends at my place. It felt comfortable. Familiar. Maybe too familiar. Then, while I was at Disneyland of all places, a place that's supposed to be full of joy and magic, he called me. Told me he had a baby. I was crushed. It wasn't just the surprise of it, or the betrayal. It was the way he said it so casually, like he wasn't ripping my heart open. Deep down, I had held on to this idea that we would end up together. That no matter how messy things got, we'd eventually grow up and come back to each other. That dream shattered in one phone call. But like before, I forgave him. Or tried to. We kept talking. And then, somehow, we found our way back to something more serious. We started seeing each other every weekend, sometimes more. He was saying all the right things. Doing the right things. I started to believe again. I told myself maybe this was it. Maybe we'd finally grown into the people we needed to be to make this work. And when he asked me to be his girlfriend again, I said yes. I was hesitant at first, guarded. But over time, I let my walls down. I started daydreaming about the future again. About us, about a life that finally made sense. I let myself be happy. Then last week, we got into an argument. Not a breakup. Just an argument. Yes, things got heated. Yes, words were said. But there was no conversation, no, we're done. No closure. And then yesterday, I got a message from my cousin. She had screen recorded something from his Instagram story. He had posted another girl. Not just a friend. It was intimate. Cozy. The kind of post you only make when you want the world to know who you're with. And just like that, it was over. No phone call. No text. No explanation. Just an Instagram story and silence. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, mind racing. It wasn't even the fact that he moved on. It was that I had to find out through someone else. That he didn't even have the decency to end things before showing off someone new. And now I'm here. Hurt. Confused. Angry. Not just at him, but at myself. Because deep down, I knew. I always knew who he was and what he was capable of. But I kept choosing hope over history. I kept choosing the fantasy over the facts. Everyone keeps telling me the same thing. Don't reach out. Don't give him that power. Let it go. And maybe they're right. Maybe closure isn't something I'll get from him. Maybe I have to give it to myself. But it's hard. It's hard when you've built so much around one person. When your history is tangled up in your identity. When the first person who made you feel loved is also the one who broke your heart 1,000 times over. I don't have all the answers yet. I still cry when no one's watching. I still pick up my phone and consider texting him, just to ask why. Just to say, was any of it real? But I stop myself. Because I know the answer won't make me feel better. And even if he answered honestly, it wouldn't change the fact that he let me find out through an Instagram story. So, how do I get over him? Maybe I start by telling this story. By writing it out. By giving voice to the pain so it doesn't live inside me. Maybe I remind myself that love isn't supposed to hurt this much. That someone who truly loves you doesn't keep leaving. Doesn't keep breaking you. Doesn't let you find out it's over from your cousin. Maybe healing starts with me. Not with him. And maybe, just maybe, one day, this won't hurt so much. What to do about my best friend? He's like a brother, but I'm stuck. I'm 18 and my best friend, let's call him Ant, is 17. Funny enough, we share the same first name, which is actually how we met. It was 2 months into my 11th grade year, a rough time for me. I was still struggling with trauma from my old school. I didn't talk to anyone, didn't try to make friends. I kept my head down and stayed to myself. Then one day in 5th period, a Hispanic kid walks in. He seemed new, and I barely noticed him. When the bell rang, I stood up to leave, and he was walking right behind me. I didn't think anything of it. I assumed he just happened to be going the same way. But my next class was a new one I had transferred into just that week. As I walked in, so did the same kid. I started thinking, is this dude following me? Then the teacher took roll and called out, Ant. Both of us looked up. That's when I realized we had the same name. The teacher noticed too, and ended up seating us next to each other. That day was the beginning of what would become one of the closest friendships of my life. We became inseparable. We hung out after school on weekends and talked all the time. He was there for me in ways I didn't even know I needed, and I tried to be the same for him. He felt more like a brother than just a friend. But as time went on, especially into senior year, I started noticing signs that something was wrong. Aunt would zone out sometimes, get quiet out of nowhere, or have random bursts of emotion. I tried not to press too hard, thinking he'd tell me when he was ready. Then one morning, everything changed. He had stayed over the night before and came downstairs to wake me up for school. He had this look on his face, dead serious. He handed me his phone and showed me a text message from his uncle. It was disturbing. I won't repeat it word for word, but it was threatening and violent. The kind of message that makes your stomach drop. I asked Aunt, "Has he done this before?" He just nodded. That was the first time I realized how bad things were at home for him. I told him, "Stay here until it blows over." My mom agreed. We made space for him in our home. But his mental health kept deteriorating. He wouldn't want to get out of bed. Every morning was a battle. My mom and I would talk to him, try to encourage him, remind him of his worth. I was going through my own struggles at the time, stuff that made me angry and overwhelmed, but I always tried to make time for him. He needed help, and I wanted to be that for him. But one day, everything nearly collapsed. I had to go to work. My boss picked me up like usual. I didn't know that while I was gone and told my mom he was going home. 3 hours into my shift, I checked my phone on a bathroom break and saw a message from him. It was a goodbye message, the kind people send when they don't expect to come back. My heart stopped. I told my boss I had to leave right now. I didn't explain much, just ran out. My coworker said her girlfriend could help, and together with my mom, his grandmother, and the two of them, we searched for him. When I finally found him, I ran up and tackled him to the ground. I brought him home again. Then, a few weeks later, I ended up in the hospital due to an accident. While I was recovering, Aunt texted me. His mom had signed papers for him to drop out of school. He had talked about it before, but I always told him he was halfway through. "You're almost there, man. Just keep going." He said he couldn't. He was done. I tried not to panic. I told myself, okay, at least he has a job. My sister had helped him get work, so maybe he could earn his GED while working. It wasn't ideal, but it was something. Then, while I stayed after school one day for community service hours, I got calls from my mom and brother. Aunt had walked off the job. Just left. I was furious. I came home ready to explode. But when I saw him, I just hugged him. We talked. I told him it would be okay. But that talk didn't end well. He said he didn't want to go back to school. He didn't want to do anything. I tried giving him space. But I couldn't keep letting him sit around doing nothing. He started talking about moving back home, especially since his abusive uncle was planning to move away. I didn't want him to go, but I thought maybe he needed a change. Maybe he needed a reset. And then he brought weed into the house. He said he needed it to cope. I told him, "Not here. I don't want that in my home." So, on New Year's Day, he packed up and moved out. It felt like someone ripped a piece of my heart out, but I hoped maybe this was the push he needed. It wasn't. Now it's summer. He hasn't gotten a new job. Still refuses to go back to school. And he keeps hitting me up to hang out every day. I can't do it anymore. I love him like family, but I can't keep watching him destroy himself. I've thought about cutting him off, but I can't bring myself to do that. He's my brother. But I'm stuck. I don't know how to help him without hurting myself. As a last resort, I'm asking for help. What can I do for him in the long run? Right now, the plan is to get him working again. He might start again with my sister in the fall. I'm also starting work at the job he walked out on, and maybe I can help him get back in there. I'm hoping something sticks. But if it doesn't, I honestly don't know what happens next. Should I reach out? When I think about my biological dad, a wave of confusion and heartache usually follows. Our relationship didn't end with a dramatic goodbye. It just faded, slowly and painfully, until there was nothing left. Now I'm 22, and I find myself wondering if I should reach out. But the memories are complicated. I had a relationship with my biological father up until I was about 11 or 12. He had remarried when I was around 6 or 7, and for a few years, everything seemed okay. His new wife wasn't awful at first. I had a tiny attic bedroom in their house and visited every second weekend, alternating between my mom's home and theirs. They also had a young son together when I was about 10. But one weekend changed everything. I had taken a shower the night before and left my towel by the door of my small attic room. intending to take it to the wash basket the next morning. I fell asleep without giving it another thought. The next day, Saturday, my dad had already gone to work. His wife was downstairs vacuuming. Then she came into my room. I was still asleep when she stormed in, screaming about the towel, about how I was a disgrace, about how messy my room supposedly was. It was just 2 towels by the door. And then she did something that still makes my heart race when I remember it. She hit me with the plastic nozzle of the vacuum 3 or 4 times while I was still in bed. I jolted awake, confused and terrified. I tried to explain that I was planning to take the towels down in the morning, but she wouldn't listen. She slammed the door and left me there. I didn't leave the room for the rest of the day, not to eat, not to use the bathroom. I waited until my dad came home and she left for work. When he finally called me downstairs, he didn't ask if I was okay. Instead, he said his wife told him I had been disrespectful and my room was a mess. I told him everything, what she had done, how I hadn't even been awake when it started, and his response was, "Well, you have to apologize to her." I was stunned. It wasn't just disbelief, it was betrayal. The person who was supposed to protect me didn't even believe me. I refused to apologize. Later, she came up to my room and told me that my behavior was outrageous, and I owed her an apology. She said, "Fine, we'll let it go," but then handed me a double-sided A4 sheet of paper filled with house rules. One of them stood out. "You will not leave your bed at night to go to the toilet or walk around your room after we go to bed, as your room is above ours and I can't hear you." It felt like I was being punished just for existing. I called my mom and told her everything. I sent her a photo of the rules. She told me, F*** that, and came to get me immediately. That was the last time I ever stayed at their house. After that, I texted my dad a few times. He kept trying to justify why he stood by his wife, why he didn't believe me. He would message me once a month or so for about 2 years, asking if I'd meet him or visit him and my brother. I kept saying no. I was 12, angry and hurt. I couldn't understand how he could choose someone who hurt me over me. Eventually, he stopped trying. But for a few years, he'd still send me a birthday message every year. I'd reply and send one back. On my 18th birthday, he left a card with some money at my grandmother's house. I texted him thanks and we had a brief conversation. But after my 20th birthday, he stopped reaching out altogether. I don't know why. I haven't heard from him since. But today, I went back through our old messages and I started to question everything. Was it my fault we didn't keep in contact? Could I have done more? Was I too angry? Too unforgiving? But then I remind myself I was a child. I was hurt, scared, and let down. My mom married a wonderful man not long after all this. He's raised me like his own, and I love him deeply. He and my mom have 2 kids together, my siblings, and they mean the world to me. But my biological father and his wife had another child when I was around 14 or 15. I've never met that child. I'm sure my other brother doesn't even remember me. And that breaks my heart. I wonder if they even know I exist. I wonder what they've been told about me. I worry that their mother has poisoned their view of me, if they've even heard my name. I think about those boys a lot. They're 12 and 8 now, and I think about whether I should have tried harder to stay in their lives. But I was a kid, too. Now I'm here, torn. Part of me wants to reach out to my father. Part of me wants to reconnect, not just with him, but with my brothers. But another part of me wonders if it's too late. Or if it's even safe. Should I be the one to reach out first? Should he have to make the first move? Should I wait until my brothers are older and can make their own decisions about me? Should I risk hearing that they don't want to know me at all? There's so much I don't know. And I don't want to open a door that could lead to more hurt. But I also don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. I'm not looking for pity, just perspective. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Is it worth reaching out to someone who turned their back on you? Or should I let it go and protect the peace I've finally found? I don't have the answers. I just know that the questions are getting louder. I thought I wanted kids. Hi, lovely people. I'm writing this with a full heart and a mind spinning in 1,000 directions. I'm 35 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been certain of one thing. I wanted to be a mother. It wasn't a passing thought or a vague daydream. It was a core part of how I saw my future. My 20s were meant for self-discovery and freedom. My 30s were supposed to be about building a family. I had all these beautiful, hopeful images in my head, lazy weekend mornings with my child curled up next to me, finger painting in the kitchen, bedtime stories, and first day of school photos. It felt natural, right, and rooted in something deeply emotional. And I wasn't alone, my partner was on board, and we both talked about names, dreams, the kind of parents we'd be. Then real life happened. We tried for a few years. It didn't happen. I had one brief pregnancy, which ended far too quickly. Losing that pregnancy was heartbreaking in ways I didn't expect, but I made my peace with it, or at least I thought I did. Around the same time, my energy and health took a downer. I hit burnout in my job as a secondary school teacher, a career I love, but one that demands more than most people realize. I had to hit pause and focus on healing. The failure to conceive hit me harder than I thought it would. I'd always had this belief that becoming a mother was simply something that would happen if I tried. When it didn't, I felt defective. I kept wondering if I was broken or not trying hard enough. But then something surprising happened. I started reflecting. Really, deeply questioning everything I believed about motherhood. I spent time with my niece and nephew for several days in a row. I love them dearly, but the experience was exhausting. The constant vigilance, the emotional labor, the noise, the mess, the lack of any moment to just be. I realized I didn't bounce back from those days the way other people seemed to. I felt drained to the bone, overstimulated, and on edge. That time with them opened a door in my mind. What if this isn't what I want after all? I'm what some people call a highly sensitive person, HSP. I feel things deeply, process slowly, and need lots of quiet time to recharge. Even before trying for children, I struggled with fatigue, 20 years of it, off and on. It's only in the past couple of years that I've begun to feel better, like I finally have my feet under me. The idea of trading in that hard-won stability for years of sleepless nights, overstimulation, and constant demands feels terrifying now. The deeper I've gone into this reflection, the more I've begun to see things differently. Not having children might not be a failure or a loss. It might be a gift I give myself. A gift of time, energy, freedom, creativity, and self-preservation. I'm starting to see that maybe, just maybe, choosing not to have kids could be the most powerful and loving decision I ever make for myself. Don't get me wrong. I still think I'd be a good mother. I know I have the empathy, the patience, the depth of love. But I've also realized that being a good mother would likely come at a huge personal cost to my own well-being. And that matters too. It's not selfish to consider the life I'd be living every day for 18 plus years. It's not selfish to want to remain myself. Sometimes I ask myself, would I regret not having children? The truth is, I don't know. And that uncertainty is haunting. I wish I had a crystal ball. I wonder if this ambivalence is just fear in disguise. Or if it's wisdom. Sometimes I daydream about a childless life, and it makes me feel lighter. I imagine writing more, traveling, spending long quiet mornings in nature, diving deeper into my work, building strong friendships, being the cool aunt. I imagine peace. Then sometimes I see a child smiling at their parent, and I feel an ache I can't quite name. The emotional back and forth is exhausting. I feel like I'm grieving a version of myself that I thought I'd become. And at the same time, I'm learning to love the version of myself that I actually am. I don't hear enough people talking about this, about changing their minds about parenthood, about realizing that the dream might not be what they actually want, or what they're built for, or about feeling relief when motherhood doesn't happen. This feels big. It feels like something I shouldn't have to navigate alone. Thank you for reading this far. Truly. Did I make the best decision by cutting this friend off? This was my ex-best friend of 4 years. We had some good times, but looking back, there were many moments that made me question our friendship. Here are some memorable things she did. Tell me what you think. In my first university year, I was a hardworking, excellent student. But in the second year, I reconnected with her, and everything changed. She skipped classes daily to sit in the garden talking about boys and nonsense. I started joining her, missing my classes, and my grades dropped to her level. I felt pressured to entertain her for validation. She'd praise me for being funny, but my self-esteem and academics suffered. She'd guilt-trip me to hang out constantly, even when I needed alone time or was at home. If I said no, she'd snap. If your boyfriend asked, you wouldn't hesitate. Once I was on my period in pain and she just said, "Wanna go out?" I said no, and she coldly replied, "Okay," with no empathy. I blocked her, said I needed space, and she acted fine, but the next day, she showed up at my classroom, and I awkwardly let her back and like nothing happened. Then there was the secret breaking incident. Someone told my boyfriend she smoked, and he told me, making me promise not to tell her. But when I saw her chatting with a guy who spread the rumor, I broke my promise and warned her, only to protect her to not share anything with him, making her promise not to expose me. 6 months later, that guy confronted my boyfriend, almost fought him, and accused him of being disloyal with secrets. My boyfriend was furious, but forgave me. When I confronted her, she freaked out, lying, "I didn't say who told me," then playing victim. "It's my reputation." I was hurt. When I showed proof she lied, she attacked me. "Now you're siding with your BF?" I said, "Yes, and he's right. I trapped him." Later, she got close to that same guy who spread the rumor and told me, "Maybe your boyfriend's the one lying." She even demanded to meet my BF to talk to him. I shut it down. Keep my BF out of this. Once I told her my boyfriend gives me money and I wanted to buy gold, but my mom can't know I'm dating, so she'd freak if I suddenly had gold. My friend insisted I just spend it on food so my mom wouldn't suspect. I said, I eat out sometimes, and she snapped, "You crazy."
Didn't invite me.
I said I'd invite her someday. The next day, we went to a restaurant, and after eating, she demanded, "Are you gonna pay?" I said I only brought money for myself since I never actually invited her. She got silent and salty. Note, when I opened my wallet, she tried to peek inside. Before that, we'd gone to a police exhibition because she was desperate to find a handsome policeman to marry. She circled one guy for hours while my feet ached. She even said to me, "Are you weak or something?" The whole outing was about her obsession. No fun. No real conversation. She even dragged me onto a gross, scary mode of transport as a surprise. When I sat on the ground, exhausted, no seats, she sneered, "You don't look high class like this. Men can't see us like homeless people." I had to stand and keep searching for her man. Meanwhile, she joked/laughing genuinely with her sister on the phone while I stood there, drained. When I told her let's go eat something, I'm hungry, she said as if she's joking, "If you don't stop it, I'm gonna slap you," while her sister listening. I felt humiliated. Her whole family encouraged her hunt for a rich, handsome policeman. Her dad even told her to smile more. She was shocked my boyfriend gave me his whole salary. "At least you're taking advantage of him." I said, "No, he's just generous." That night, I realized how drained I was. I unfriended her everywhere.
She spammed. "Really?
"You unfollowed me? How could you?" "Okay, sis, separate ways." I replied. I pretended I was okay, but after our outing, I felt exhausted and unimportant. Everything we did felt meaningless. "I need space for my well-being. I wish you happiness." Then I blocked her. My friend thinks I'm a liar. Throwaway account. I'm F35, pretty devastated by this encounter, and it's been a challenge to process it/understand what the heck happened. I've felt life. I've been full-body grieving about it for the past week. I've been dehydrated from the crying and have had no appetite. I was supposed to hang out with a couple of friends, 30F and 30F, for an afternoon. I have an autoimmune disease called mast cell activation syndrome, MCAS, and sometimes symptoms come in unexpectedly and violently and leave just as expectedly. I canceled my hangout with them because I was concerned to drive, and a couple hours later the fog lifted after weeks of being in migraine land. I ran into town, did some errands, and I had all this social desire built up in me, so stopped by an event that I knew some friends would be at, potentially including those two friends. I was so happy to see them. They did end up coming, and we hung out for a bit, but at some point in the evening, they left without telling me. I went home, asked my partner if he thought they could be mad at me, and he said, "No way, you are all such good friends." One of the friends, who I consider my best friend, said she thinks I'm a liar and that I wasn't sick. She went on to state that she thinks I lie about a lot of things. She went on to say something along the lines of, "You know I've seen your roots, right?" Which felt way out of left field, and it honestly crushed me. What I have lied about for years is my hair color. It's embarrassing the reason I started dyeing my hair, but it relates to the chronic health issues I've had most of my life. Basically, my hair changed color, was breaking off like crazy, and it generally was a very awful time in my life. I still don't talk about it with anyone. To cover how awful it looked, I started dyeing it, and I would just say it was my color. The hairdresser I worked with, without bleach, we tried to dye it close to my natural color, wheat color, but it was so damaged that it looked so splotchy, and so much worse. Auburn/brown was the only color that made me look even a little normal. 13 years later, I can tell that my hair is mostly recovered, but I don't know how I would feel about growing it out. At a certain point, I just embraced it as my own, and I started to love it. Both my grandmothers had similar hair color in their youth, and my stepbrother, who I adore, has a similar color. And people would ask me about it. I would always just say it was mine, mostly because it felt painful to get into. I don't know why it's felt like this, but the idea of telling them I dyed it always felt like I would have to explain why I dye it. That has always felt tender and painful to talk about, and I've never felt like I was in a place to do that. Sometimes I would flippantly say silly reasons, like I was hit by lighting. I guess part of me thought that would be funny, certainly a defensive mechanism to avoid talking about it. When she said that, about my roots, I told her the above story and asked her what else felt like a lie. I tried to reassure her that I wouldn't lie about my physical condition and to please tell me other things that it has felt dishonest. She asked if I had really had a twin in the womb who I absorbed, yep, and if I had been struck by lightning, not through my head but at my leg. She also asked me about my shoes, and I don't know if it was direct, but I have wide feet, and she asked if they were really wide because they didn't look it. I can't actually remember other things she asked about. I think I was in shock a little about this turn in our relationship, seemingly out of nowhere. I asked if she's been feeling this way the whole time, and she said pretty much. I was also confused by a statement she made, that she would sometimes lie and say that her false eyelashes were hers. I felt confused because it just would never occur to me to care about if she would lie about that. It confused me she would bring that up and not see the contradiction, I guess. She suggested that maybe I try and tell stories to depict myself as more special, or unique, or unusual. I had not really considered this before because I've always felt unusual, and I felt that was reflected in my experiences and stories. I am aware of how weird my life has been. Sometimes sharing about it feels scary. Maybe the headlines of the stories I share are clickbaity and majestic. But I feel so dedicated to honesty, and I think that's because I've been gaslit by the medical system my whole life. I have been told I've been lying my whole life about my body, symptoms, and such, only to finally get diagnosed as an adult with MCAS. As an adult, all of my chronic illness finally was contextualized. After this encounter, I've asked several friends about their experience of me, and I've tried to examine and scrutinize my stories. An unfortunate reality of MCAS is that it can really mess with your memory. I've also unfortunately had some concussions. I assume they feed into each other, but I don't really know. An example of how this shows up in my life is that I had to have a friend help me go through my contacts and friends list to help remind me how I know them. I got off social media 2-3 years ago because it gave me so much anxiety to see all these people I could not place in my memory. Some stories I know because other people have told me about it, or I have it written down, or they happen to be the memories that I do remember. I have a memory of being out to dinner with her, and we had a waitress who appeared to me was having a hard day. My friend was frustrated with her, and she asked me if I'm better than everyone by having what she perceived to be endless patience for our waitress, and in general personality types that she feels she struggles with. To be clear, she was stating it from what felt to me from a place of curiosity. It did not feel judgmental. I said something along the lines of we all have different capacities at different times, different brain types, and kindness costs nothing. I was reflecting on this memory and was sad that I would not be extended kindness and grace. I try and show everyone that my life is hard. Why wouldn't others have just as much need for kindness, especially from the people closest to us? Outside of all of this, I've been really struggling with my mental health for the last 9 months. Last April, I had a major MCAS episode and basically couldn't walk for 4-ish months. I've been struggling with major depressive episodes and have generally been struggling to maintain movement forward. I'm now nervous and fearful to share this with her, because does that feed into the narrative that I'm lying? I don't know. How terrible it would feel that your friend is lying to you. How terrible to feel that your friend does not believe you. It felt like my best friend basically said that she doesn't believe me, and I really don't know what to do with that. She's asked for space, which I think is a fine thing to ask for if you feel lack of trust or uncertain of how to engage. I can't fault people for asking for what they need. I also tried to express the memory concern so that I could try contextualize why dates might be wrong or stories feel weird. But the expression on her face told me she doesn't believe me. The other friend was like, whatever, sounds like there was a misunderstanding, let's hang out on Wednesday. I have a new therapist I'll take this to as well. I'm trying to paint myself as honestly as possible here. Unspoken distance. She had been with him for 10 years, since she was just a teenager learning what love looked like, how it felt, how it grew and stretched and sometimes strained under the weight of life. They met young, fell hard, and built a bond that, on the surface, looked like the kind most people dreamed of: respectful, stable, full of laughter and shared goals. They talked about marriage, the future, growing old side by side. They were best friends. But beneath the stability was a quiet ache she didn't know how to name for a long time. At first, it was just a passing thought, a wish that he would reach for her more often, pull her close just because, kiss her like he used to. She brushed it off. Maybe they were just busy, tired, adjusting to adulthood. Everyone said long-term relationships changed over time. Years went by. They moved in together, traveled, supported each other through career changes and family events. The foundation held strong, but the intimacy kept slipping further away, like something caught in a tide she couldn't swim against. At first, she brought it up gently, then more directly. He promised to try. Things would improve for a week, maybe two. And then the quiet returned.
The cold side of the bed.
The turn back. The soft apologies laced with "I'm tired," or "It's not you. I'm just not in the mood." She tried not to take it personally. She really did. But over time, the rejection started to sting in new ways. She began to doubt herself, her attractiveness, her worth. She stopped reaching out because it hurt more to be turned away than to be untouched. She started to wonder if something was wrong with her for needing more, for craving affection, not just sexually, but emotionally, physically, spiritually. A hand on her back, a kiss on the neck, a moment of connection that reminded her she was still wanted. Some nights, after a beautiful date or a fun evening together, she'd hope, just maybe, that the warmth would lead to something more. A spark, a kiss that lingered, a quiet moment that turned electric. But he would say he was tired, full, or just kiss her on the forehead and roll over. And she would lie there, blinking back tears in the dark, wondering if this was the life she was signing up for forever.
She didn't want to cheat.
She didn't want anyone else. But she did want to feel chosen.
Craved. Seen.
She spent so much time wondering, is it selfish to want more? Is it wrong to feel starved when everything else is so good? Her fiancé was a good man.
Loyal.
Honest. Funny.
Kind.
But something was missing, and it wasn't small. It was the thread of physical and emotional closeness that turns a relationship into a deep romantic partnership. Without it, everything else felt hollow. She started to fantasize, not about other people, but about a different version of their life. One where she felt radiant and confident because her partner adored her out loud. One where passion wasn't something she had to beg for or choreograph, but something that flowed naturally because the desire was mutual. One where she didn't feel embarrassed to want more than cuddles and a peck on the cheek. She questioned herself constantly. If I loved him, why wasn't this enough? Was she broken for needing touch and attention? Would any man truly give her what she longed for, or was this just the way relationships went eventually? Then she'd see couples in cafes touching hands, whispering with flushed faces, or friends giggling about their love lives. She felt a twinge, not of envy, but of mourning for what she'd never really had after the early honeymoon years. She wasn't angry with him. That was the hardest part. There was no villain in this story, just two people, maybe wired differently. But the more she tried to live with that, the more she started to wilt. She felt herself folding inward. She was only in her 20s, but already fantasizing about what it would feel like to be held like it meant something. One night, after another failed attempt to talk things through, where he fell asleep mid-sentence, exhausted again, she sat alone in the dark and typed everything out. Not to attack him. Not to win a fight. Just to finally say what had been lodged in her chest for years. She wrote about how often she cried alone, about how she missed being kissed like it meant something. How much it hurt to feel more wanted by strangers than by the man she was going to marry. How she used to fantasize about him, and now she didn't even feel like she could reach for his hand without being brushed off. She wrote that she still loved him, that she didn't want to walk away, but she needed to feel alive in this relationship, not just safe. That she wanted to build a future, but not one where her needs disappeared the minute the ring went on. She didn't know if he would understand,
or if he could change.
But she finally knew that this wasn't just about sex or attention. It was about connection, closeness, the kind of intimacy that doesn't fade when you're tired or busy or stressed, but grows because you water it together. She didn't send it right away. She read it over and over. And finally, the next morning, she left it for him to read while she was out. Not to shock him, not to punish him, but because pretending she was okay was no longer an option. If you've ever loved someone deeply but still felt alone beside them, you understand this story. Sometimes, what hurts the most isn't a lack of love, but the slow fading of being wanted. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop swallowing your needs and start speaking them out loud. Whether it breaks something or builds something stronger, at least it's honest. And sometimes, that's the place where healing begins. I don't want to be friends with them anymore. Last year, I met someone I'll call Kelly. She was older than me, still a minor, but a few years ahead. We met through theater, and at first, we hit it off like crazy. We had the same humor, loved FaceTiming for hours, and joked about the dumbest stuff, immature stuff, edgy stuff, sometimes way too far. We were close. Almost too close. Eventually, a small friend group formed. Me, Kelly, Bart, and Luke. Me, Bart, and Luke were all a lot younger than Kelly. But Kelly was kind of the center of it. Everyone seemed to follow her lead. Things started off fun, but after a few months, the jokes got darker and more uncomfortable. What started as stupid humor turned into Kelly making racist jokes, specifically toward me. I'm brown and she's white. The first time she said something like, "ICE is looking for you," or "Go back to your country," I laughed nervously. I didn't want to seem sensitive or ruin the joke. But it didn't stop. It got worse. At some point, I realized I wasn't laughing anymore. I was just sitting there, pretending I was okay with being the punchline. I started to feel gross inside, like I had to play along or else I'd be left out. Eventually, I told her, calmly and directly, "Can you stop making those jokes? They're racist. They make me feel bad." Her reaction? "Are you serious?" I told her yes. She said, "Okay, I'll stop." The next day, I blocked her. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt sick after every call. I had to get out. Then I told the others. I told Luke first. I explained everything. His response? He told me I was mean for blocking her,
That I should have talked to her about it.
I reminded him I did.
She knew why.
But he didn't care. He called me the asshole. Next, I went to Bart.
At first, he seemed to understand.
He told me what she did wasn't okay, and said he was going to stop talking to her too. I thought he had my back. He didn't. They stayed friends. Nothing changed. Bart and Luke kept joking around with Kelly, acting like I was being dramatic. They even started making fun of me. If I ever said something upset me, they'd say, "What, you gonna block us and not tell us why?" And then laugh. I told them to stop. They didn't. That's when everything really started to mess with my head. The truth is, I made some mistakes too. Back when we were all still friends, we had this weird game where we text really messed up stuff, like actually bad stuff, and then unsend it. They all did it. I didn't at first, but I eventually joined in because I felt like if I didn't, I'd be the weirdo, the outsider. So one time, I texted Kelly the N-word and unsent it. No context, no meaning behind it, just because that was the joke. I hate that I did that. It was wrong. I regret it. The difference between me and the others is that I never screenshotted their messages. But Kelly screenshotted mine. Even after I blocked her and months went by with no contact, she sent that screenshot to Bart and Luke. And they still use it against me. They'll randomly send it to me again. Or bring it up in a joking way just to make me feel horrible. And it works.
It really messes me up.
I've never told anyone this before, but I think Kelly was obsessed with me. Looking back, the way she acted around me felt too intense, too personal. After one of my theater shows, she had someone give me a handwritten note that said, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Like she wanted to stay connected to me, even after I had clearly ended things. Later on, I found out Kelly is gay. And then her former best friend, someone her age, told me that Kelly used to talk about me all the time. She said it was weird, almost like Kelly had a crush on me. And now, when I replay how close we were, how much time we spent on the phone, the way she treated me, the sexual jokes she made even though they made me uncomfortable, it all feels really off. Kelly is about to be an adult. I'm still in middle school. Was I groomed? I don't know. But I feel like something was seriously wrong. And there's one more thing I've never said out loud. Kelly told me something personal about Bart, that he's trans. Bart doesn't know I know, and I've never told anyone. Not even now. Even though I've been hurt by all of them, I still haven't crossed that line. I would never betray someone like that. Even when they keep mocking me, sending me the screenshot, and acting like everything's a joke. I don't want to be friends with them anymore. Not Kelly. Not Bart. Not Luke. But I feel trapped. If I block them, they'll probably talk about me even more. Make up stories. Share the screenshot.
Make me out to be the bad guy.
But keeping them around feels worse. Every message I get from them is like a punch in the stomach. Every time they joke about it or send me that message, I feel ashamed all over again. Like I'm frozen in that moment, like I'll never be anything more than that mistake. I know I messed up. I said something I never should have said. But I was influenced by people older than me. People who made racist jokes about me, who pressured me into going along with things that felt wrong, and who turned on me the moment I stood up for myself. I'm scared to leave. But I'm more scared of what'll happen to me if I don't. If you're reading this and you're in a similar situation, here's what I want you to know. You're allowed to outgrow people. You're allowed to block people who make you feel unsafe or ashamed. You're allowed to move on, even if your past isn't perfect. You don't owe your loyalty to people who laugh at your pain. What happened to me wasn't just about a toxic friend group. It was about being too young to know how to protect myself. About being manipulated, then mocked. About having my biggest mistake turned into ammunition against me. And I'm done carrying all of it alone. I want peace. I want real friends. I want to stop feeling scared when I see their names pop up on my screen. It's time for me to let go. And maybe this story is the first step.